the spirit of my practice. I have a sound in my head when I think of that, of somebody beating on a drum, marking time, very meticulously, at times very ornately, at times very cryptically, but constantly, every single day, every single moment of the day. It's there. It's quiet. People used to mark on sticks with a knife, notch, to mark the passage of time. And I think as an artist, when you're doing your practice every day, you're marking time with your whole body, with your whole self.
Well, as Benedictines, we spend a lot of time at prayer because of the liturgy of the hours. We pray in the morning, we pray at noon, we have Mass at 5, and then we have evening prayers at 7. So sometimes we say, eat and pray, with work in between.
I sit Zen meditation, and also I do this Tibetan practice called Tangling, which is breathing in and out, working with your emotional stuff or whatever you want to work with.
I start my mornings with some stretches and breathing and centering. Then I'll do some prana yoga, some breathing exercises. And then I might do some mantras, mostly to clear my head. I do the E mantra that clears my head. And then I like to read some kind of inspirational material. And I may only read 3 or 4 pages and highlight them. From there, I write in my journal, I process what I've read. And that starts my day in bliss. Just bliss. I'm so relaxed, and definitely heart chakra is open and vibrating, and I love everyone, and I'm feeling happy and very forgiving. And the great part is the revelations I have when I go from reading the lesson to writing it about myself and my relationships with people.
Well, first there's just the daily form. The daily form is an hour and a half meditation in the morning and an hour at night. And then there's a devotional practice called a puja, which is just a whole sacramental event, which involves chanting and recitation. A student is feeling and intuiting just the feeling of the heart, or the feeling of being, magnified through the transparent vehicle of the guru, of the realizer. In practice of guru yoga, you meditate literally on the guru. The idea is that you duplicate his state. You become what you meditate on, is the ancient principle. And so you kind of take on that vibe. But it's always keeping the attention there, not on yourself. You surrender the attention to the realizer, which, as your practice starts to deepen, becomes not an other at all. The realizer becomes just that feeling, an incredible feeling in your chest.
I'm almost not aware of it because it's more my lifestyle, really. And as an artist, it's always going on around me. It's almost like being a fish in a fishbowl. And it's a way to see the world, literally or figuratively looking through life with this lens of being an artist. It passes through me and it comes out in my artwork.
It used to be like, a sitting meditation was really hard, like painful. I think it used to be like a kind of discipline, to me, but not anymore, because since I've been practicing, long time. And I feel like more harmony, into my body. It's my basic, I think. I need to do that in order to live.
One of the things is habit. I've done it for so long. I'm compelled to do it by whatever biological thing makes habit. The other thing is I really enjoy doing it, and if I don't do it for a long time, I am unhappy. So it's the pleasure that it brings that keeps me doing it. One of the other things that keeps me doing it is hope. I'm always hopeful that in doing it, I'll discover something new, something different about something that I am very close to, but wholly unaware of in terms of what it can offer.
There is something that happens when you are really present. I remember when I was kind of an early teenager, and sometimes in the summer I was alone in the house. Sometimes I would get like a sudden flash of self-awareness, and it was kind of freaky. I was scared by it. I felt like I was going nuts, almost. It was a formless thing. But now I kind of really, I like it when that happens. I feel a lot more trusting, more open, more confident, less anxious, less prone to depression.
It's like exercising a muscle, and the more you use it, the better it becomes. It certainly helps to keep doing it.
I remember all those times that I spent at the beach, where I would be swimming back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Part of the practice is becoming very sensitized to just how the feeling of dilemma that's in us and how that motivates your life and drives your life, and becoming very sensitive to that, because most of us are devoted to desensitizing ourselves to that. And that's what Adida would talk about as self-understanding. And then there's a level, it also ruins my life in the sense of the contrast of what I feel in practice is so free and so ecstatic. It just makes everything else just seem like a joke.
It feels good. It's as simple as that. It just feels good. It feels good physically. There are times when I'm very stressed and feeling under pressure, and I forget to do my practice, I get tense, anxious, ego-driven, crazy. Just, like most people. I become normal.
If everyone did this practice or similar practices, or any practice that is intending to kind of bring forth more compassion or bring forth more deep sense of connection with what is, I would imagine that there would be probably less conflict, more understanding between people. I really think we would be probably a little bit more civil, more appreciating actually of the beautiful things in life, and less anxious about maintaining a certain persona or maintaining a certain self-image. Relationships would be a lot more open, there would be more trust. These things, at least from the Buddhist perspective, it's like that's what everybody is working for, but they always put these kind of eons goals in front of them. It's like we're not expecting to see this in our lifetime, but that's what we're working with.
In hopes of having a better world, if all the artists had kids, those kids would grow up a little differently with artistic parents. Maybe they'd be artists and see the world a little differently. Maybe not. They might turn out to be bankers or something else.
If everyone in the world did art, I think it probably would be a good place. The one thing about making art that is different than, say, driving your car down a highway at 60 miles an hour in traffic is the level of self-awareness that you're required to maintain. It's constructive, it's positive, it's optimistic, it's hopeful.
If everybody in the world did yoga, I think it would just be all the stuff that we're so angst and crazy about now would just start to be a low priority. People would be fully present in the moment and doing what was essential and necessary in the moment. From defrosting the refrigerator to reading a story to your child or calling someone you haven't spoken to in a long time to let them know you love them and care about them. So the world would be great if everybody started their day from that place.
Oh, much more peaceful. Yeah. That'd be wonderful. We should probably visualize that.
Okay, we'll do that at the end.
Okay.
The teacher was cute. It was purely carnal. I saw this cute guy in my neighborhood a couple of times and I didn't know who he was. And I was sitting in a restaurant with a friend, and he came in and he spoke to her. And when he walked away, I said, "Oh, he's gorgeous. Who is he?" She says, "My yoga teacher." And I said, "Okay, I'll take yoga."
Well, I entered the community here right after I graduated here from college back in 1952. For one thing, the community has given me all these opportunities to develop the gifts that I have. If I weren't here, how many people who are married and are good and are raising their family and doing all wonderful things have the kind of time that I have for creativity? Benedict even has a chapter in the Rule on the artisans. There's always been a great tradition among Benedictines to support the arts. And I think that's why the monastery does draw a lot of people in, because they see, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful? The Benedictine tradition, it's one of hospitality, it's one of welcoming people, it's one of work and prayer, stability, peace. Peace is our motto. You know, it's just a very nice place, and so I thought, I guess I'll stay.
But the tradition of rigor, and that comes from how I was raised as a child to do things the same way every day. Go feed the chickens, go feed the dog, clean up the dog poop, clean up the chicken shit, sweep the yard. Every day you heard the same messages over and over. And at the time when you're young, you resent that. You don't want to do that. But as you get older, you realize that that was an honorable way to live. There were no rewards for cleaning up dog shit. Other than, well, yes, there were obvious, you didn't smell the dog shit. And I think when you do things that way, when you continue that practice as you get older, the practice of cleaning up poop and teaching, I don't know if they're the same, but they might be, and making, drawing and listening and looking and documenting and writing things down, and you do it every single day without regard for reward, it's a good thing. And that's the tradition that my mother started, because we never got anything. I never got anything for cleaning up the dog poop. There were no obvious rewards at the end. There were no pennies. I try for myself to keep that tradition alive when I teach. I don't promise kids that at the end I'll give them $1 if they do a really good drawing. And I know for myself, if I do a really good drawing, I'm not going to get $1 either. But I still do it because that's the way I was taught, and that's the way that seems honorable.
The first word that comes to my mind is love. Just a really deep desire to communicate what I was really moved by. There are many companions there I get to know. There's a group of Hmong people there, eating their noodles under a tree. I sketch them surreptitiously. And one of the men later tells me a story. He says, "See those inner tubes the kids are swimming with? Those are the very tubes that we used to cross the Mekong River with. That saved our lives. That saved our lives."
Problem solving is a big part of being creative. It's this collection of natural animals with artificial flowers there. It's kind of a depressing place. They're talking about not trashing the earth. There's even a rat trap down there. So while they're preserving animals, they're also killing them at the same time. I just love the contradictions. It was kind of an ugly scene, but at the same time, this red plastic watering can was beautifully translucent in that window. When I walked in there, it's not captured so well on this image, but that was this little piece of beauty that was in the space. It's things that inspire you, and it's also things that you think about a bit too. I think it touches all of the aspects of being human.
My creative work is, I think, to help people access the divinity within themselves, their creativity within themselves. I think creativity is pure spirit, energy moving through us, and that everybody has the capacity to be creative if they can be still enough to accept and experience what's flowing through them.
Yeah, there is a relationship between practice and being creative. If you do not practice whatever it is that you do, it's very difficult to be creative with it. If you just pick up whatever you do every now and again and do it, you're starting from zero every time. And my practice as an artist allows me to become more familiar and more entwined with the process of being creative. It makes it less of an external process and turns it much more into an intuitive process. I'm much more trusting of my intuition if I practice my art form every day.
I think it's just the practice affects the art just in the mindset, and also the kind of relaxation or like the openness. Kind of letting go of like what is art and what is not art, being open to the beauties of a lot of different things. I notice things that some people may overlook as being kind of random or semi-random. You know, I'm interested, for instance, in the microscopic world, or I'm interested in cloud patterns or patterns in nature and stuff like that. And in order to notice these things, you have to have enough of an open mind to be able to appreciate them. When I write in any way that feels powerful to me, you know, really plugged into the source, it feels just like my practice. You know, I usually have a picture of Adida there because that's my spiritual master, and that's the contemplation. And when I'm writing and there's his photo there, and I fall into that space, and it's luminous and it shines. And in creativity, they talk about, you always talk about forgetting the self and the self forgotten, and the same thing in spiritual practice. So when the self is forgotten, the spiritual juice just pours, and you're just plugged into the source, and then it's just, and you're giggling at your own writing because you can't believe what's coming out of your pen. You're cooking, you're there, and it's happening, and it's like, and it feels like spiritual practice. It feels like meditation. It feels like puja. It feels like that.
When I walk in the morning, I always try to walk towards the woods in the morning, and I'm a great observer of the sky. And every time I see the sky, the sunset or the sunrise, or the patterns of the trees and so forth, I think, oh, if I could only put those colors together in a painting or with the silk. And of course, when you work with dyes, you put one color on top of the other. There's an interaction. It's not like oil paints that you can cover up one. And I'm just always stunned at the beauty in the sky. And I think, oh, could I ever paint a scene on silk that looks like that? The answer is never, never, never. But I just am so attracted to anything with color, the phenomenon of color, and it just blows my mind. Everything I see in nature, to me, is an expression of the beauty of God. Not that that tree is God, but that beauty of that tree is an expression of the beauty of God. It has to be.
I work with patterns, and I work with textures and shapes. It's a non-literal stuff, but it's a heavily pattern-oriented, whether the patterns are controlled, mark-making systems, or they are more intuitive. And I like pattern and texture and color. But I like patterns precisely because they don't have an immediate significant, they engage in another part of the awareness. People have to relate to them in a non-verbal sort of way. It's not easy to quantify, it's not easy to describe, there isn't stories that you can tell about it.
Well, it feeds my art to a certain degree, and also I'm in the presence of children who are very creative. It doesn't always affect my work directly, but sometimes it does. Like I just recently, like the last 2 days at work, we did this cup puppet theater. So I saw about 80 little shows. And that was interesting for me for my performing work or my puppetry.
Here is my classroom, my busy classroom. Here is my classroom where the children create. Here I am running in every direction, trying to help and nurture them as they work. It's never quiet, and there are paint spills. We have some time to let beauty in, as we work. There's that silver hand guiding us as we work. There's also chaos. I often get lost in the emotional labyrinth that is teaching. I go head over heels, down and around, and I emerge. As I emerge, there's another class waiting right outside the door. They're eager to come in the classroom and create. This is my life with these children, with the paint and the paper and the clay and the brushes and the paper and the pencils in my classroom.
As an artist teacher, when I go out to teach, I am forming relationships with people. Sometimes they're very intimate relationships, for a momentary intimacy when you pass on something to someone else in an instant. You're open and you recognize that openness. It's a marvelous little moment.
So it was like 2 years ago when I was asked, if I could teach sushi class. And then since I moved here, I have been trying really hard to make a connection to this country, to the people. So that was great that I was asked to do something I can do, share my knowledge or skill. And then I have been doing for 2 years, and I've been meeting people and have kind of recognition, which has been really wonderful.
I'm tremendously grateful that I figured out what I'm here to do. So when I'm floundering and adrift and lost at sea and it's too hard and I don't want to do this anymore, I'm anchored by this understanding that my work is my sadhana. The work I'm doing is my work along my spiritual path. It's part of my spiritual journey.